The long walk for survival was to leave Alcatraz Island on June 1st and cross the continent, arriving at the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. on the eve of the national elections, the 1st of November. The 5-month walk will be led by Native American people, and they have invited people of all races and all religions who agree with their vision of peace in a nuclear-free world where there is full employment with meaningful work for all. On Monday evening, April 28th, approximately 30 people of diverse backgrounds met at the Long Walk for Survival headquarters. By the meeting's end, the national coordinators were chosen. Dennis Banks, of the Ojibwa Nation, internationally known voice and activist of the American Indian struggle. Tina Baldemaro, Sioux, member of the AIM Freedom for Survival School, 4-year activist in Indian affairs and coordinator of communications. Lehman Brightman, Sioux, one of the founders of the American Indian Civil Rights Movement since 1966 and professor at Contra Costa College near Berkeley. Duke Carpenter, Cherokee, teacher at DQ University, the only all-Indian junior college on the West Coast. Philip Deere, Muskogee, highly respected spiritual advisor and activist. Pat Hendrickson, Chippewa, experienced organizer. Takeo Koshikawa, Japanese, student of Shiatsu and Buddhism. Jay Mason, Mohawk from Six Nations, medic, activist, and member of the AIM Freedom for Survival School. Rooster O'Rourke, Sioux, activist, organizer. Sian Yamato, Japanese, Zen priest, Shiatsu therapist, and teacher of healing arts.
At this time, I'd like to introduce to you a friend of mine, who's actually a brother of mine, Lee Brightman.
I'm sure that most of you heard some of the reasons that we're walking, and I'm sure that many of you are familiar with some of the problems, but one of the basic problems that we're facing as Indian people, it's affecting non-Indians also, is sterilization. And the federal government is now trying to do what they couldn't do with guns in the past, and they're doing it with this surgeon's scalpel. They've sterilized between 60 and 70,000 Indian women in the last 12 years. And what we find is most of this is being done by the Indian Health Service, which is part of HEW. And what they're doing is they get Indian women on reservations in the hospitals when they come in to have babies. And they sterilize them without even telling them in some cases. And in other cases, they tell them they have cysts on their ovaries. And instead of treating the cysts, what they do is cut out the ovaries. And then we find that Indian women, as well as poor white women and black and Chicano women, who are on welfare or threaten to have their welfare cut off if they don't submit to a sterilization operation. We find that many Indian women who come in to have babies on a reservation are asked to sign consent forms written in English when many of them can't read in English. So we never found out about the massive sterilization campaign that's going on until 1966, in which Senator Aberas from South Dakota, who has since left the Senate, but he had the GAO, the General Accounting Office, do a study. And they found out that 3,406 women and 142 men had been sterilized in a 3-year period between 1973 and 1976 in only 4 states. Well, there are 19 states that have a population of 10,000 Indians or more. And we know that they're sterilizing Indians in massive amounts in all of the western states where we have huge populations of Indians. What we're trying to do is force the federal government into stopping this genocidal campaign. We wrote President Carter 3 different letters asking him to stop the forced sterilization of Indian women. And he wouldn't even dignify the letters by writing back. Carter, in one of his campaign speeches when he was running for president, said he was against abortions because he said, at what time does an abortion become murder? So since he's against murder and he's against abortions, he doesn't mind them sterilizing thousands and hundreds of thousands of Indian women. We know they're also sterilizing hundreds of thousands of poor white women in this country who fall under the same category as Indian women. Chicano women in this state are being sterilized in huge amounts in Southern California. They are sterilizing huge amounts of black women in Southern California as well in the South. This issue strikes not just Indian women, it strikes white, black, Chicano, and Asians. Some of you may not realize the damage general sterilization can do to the country. If you introduce massive sterilization in the United States with a population of some 240 million, it's not going to endanger the white race. But it could wipe out certain races like Indians. We know they're sterilizing huge amounts of Indians in Canada. In 1970, a Catholic priest approached the House of Commons and asked them if they were sterilizing Indians, and they denied this. The Catholic priest went out and did a study of 6 Northwest Territory communities. And he found out that approximately 1/3 of all the women had been sterilized, Indian women had been sterilized in those communities. Nobody knows it's happening, and nobody's doing anything about it. We've tried to introduce this to the general public through 3 press conferences in the last 9 months, and the news media won't cover it. They refuse to cover the press conferences on sterilization. Now, we found out that most of the sterilization operations are taking place in areas where we have the largest concentration of natural resources: oil, gas, timber, uranium, and so forth. So there's a definite correlation. In other words, you might ask yourself, well, why are they trying to eradicate one race of people, American Indians, more than the rest? They want to kill off the Indian people so they can take the land. We signed 389 treaties from 1778 to 1868. And through 389 treaties, we gave up over 1 billion acres of land. And this 1 billion acres of land we gave away was the best of the land. And we retain approximately 68 million acres of land today out of the 1 billion we gave away. These people are after the land that's left. We own 55% of the uranium left in the United States. It's on Indian land. Around 1/3 of the unused coal left in this country is on Indian land. In the states of North Dakota, South Dakota, and Montana, you've got huge deposits of coal. Some of it you can dig down with a shovel and strike it. Some of these tribes don't want them to dig up their earth to get the coal. But the United States government is allowing these companies to come in and urging your Indians to negotiate contracts. They're going to make Carlsbad, New Mexico, a nuclear waste deposit site. It's been written off. And they're going to dump all of the uranium mill tailings and so forth and nuclear waste in this area. The Apaches have a reservation which is very near this. You've got many other cities that are inhabited by both white, black, and all over the races near this. And these people could care less. You know, one of the most important critical questions we could ask ourselves in this generation is, what are they going to do with this nuclear waste? How are they going to dispose of it? This nuclear reactor is the equivalent of 400 to 500 pounds of plutonium. 1 pound of plutonium has enough poison in it to poison every human being on Earth. If you took one of the nuclear reactors and buried it in the ground and drove past it on a motorcycle at 90 miles an hour, it would still contain enough deadly poison to kill you. It's the poisoning of our water, our earth, our atmosphere. There will be nothing left if we don't do something about it.